Have you ever found yourself slowing down to look at a car crash? Or maybe you get this weird thrill from a really terrifying horror movie. It's a strange paradox, isn't it? We're absolutely fascinated by the very things that are supposed to scare us. So let's pull back the curtain and figure out what's really going on.
I mean, that's the big question, right? Why on earth do we actively seek out feelings like fear and anxiety, whether we're strapping into a roller coaster or binge-watching a true crime documentary? Well, the answer is a lot more complex and way more important for our survival than you might think.
So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll talk about the allure of the dark itself. Then, we'll get into how your brain acts as a threat simulator. We'll also cover the 4 main domains of morbid curiosity, zoom in on why we're so obsessed with killers, and finally, look at how fear can actually be a kind of playground.
Okay, so first things first. Let's just acknowledge this weird but super common pull we have towards dark stuff. It's a feeling that can seem a little strange, maybe even a bit taboo, but you know what? It's a fundamental part of how we're wired.
Just think about it. That last true crime series you couldn't stop watching, the adrenaline rush from a jump scare in a movie. It's even that weird impulse to slow down and look at an accident on the side of the road. These aren't just random quirks. They're all branches growing from the very same psychological tree.
Now, it's easy to think this fascination is some kind of flaw, right? Like a glitch in our programming. But behavioral scientists say it's the exact opposite. It's actually an ancient and incredibly useful survival mechanism.
That's right. This impulse isn't about wanting to be in real danger. Not at all. It's about a desire for information about danger. It's your brain's clever way of learning how to survive a threat without ever actually having to face one.
And there's a scientific name for this: morbid curiosity. The best way to think about it is like a flight simulator, but for threats. By watching scary stories or true crime, you're basically running simulations. You're learning what predators look like, how they act, what mistakes to avoid, all from the complete safety of your couch.
But here's the thing. This curiosity isn't just one big blob of scary stuff. A behavioral scientist named Colton Scrivener has actually identified 4 distinct categories or domains that our morbid interests usually fall into. Let's break them down.
First up, we've got supernatural danger. This is your ghosts, your monsters, anything that breaks the laws of physics. Then there's violence, which is all about real-world human threats like murderers or war. Third is the uncanny. That's our fascination with things that just feel wrong, like gore, disease, stuff like that. And finally, you have the draw of dangerous minds, where we're trying to get inside the heads of the predators themselves.
Let's really zoom in on that last one because, wow, it powers one of the biggest genres in entertainment today: true crime. Why are so many of us completely obsessed with the stories of serial killers? And it all comes right back to that threat simulator we talked about. By studying the patterns and the motives of a predator, we feel like we're gaining useful intel. We're learning their tactics, spotting the warning signs. It's really just a way of trying to make the unpredictable feel a little more predictable and, hopefully, a little less scary.
But, does everyone feel this pull in the same way? The research on this is pretty clear, and it shows a very interesting pattern when you look at who's actually watching all this stuff.
What's really fascinating is that there is a huge gender gap in the true crime audience. Study after study shows that women are the primary consumers of this kind of media. So, what's that all about? Well, the leading theory is, you guessed it, an evolutionary one. The idea is that historically women have been more vulnerable to certain kinds of violence. So from a survival point of view, it was way more beneficial for women to gather all the information they could about the psychology and methods of potential attackers. It's the threat simulator being put to very specific use. Okay, so we get why we're drawn to this stuff now, but is it actually doing us any good, beyond just gathering information? The answer is a big yes. You can almost think of it as a playground for your emotions. When you watch a scary movie, you go on a whole emotional roller coaster. You feel anxiety, fear, shock, and then, this is the crucial part, relief. That whole process lets you practice managing those intense feelings, but in a totally controlled environment. You learn what your limits are, and you learn how to calm yourself down from a state of fear.
And to really get how this emotional workout works, it helps to know the 2 main ingredients: terror and horror. See, they're not the same thing. Terror is that slow, building suspense, the dread of what's lurking behind the door. Horror is the shock you feel the moment the door opens and you actually see the monster. The best scary stories are masters at balancing these two, playing our emotions just like an instrument.
So when it comes right down to it, that strange pull you feel towards the dark, it's not something to be weirded out by. It's actually a deep-seated protective instinct. It's a feature, not a bug, designed to help you navigate a pretty complicated world.
The next time you hit play on a true crime docuseries or a horror film, just remember what's really going on in your head. You're not just passively sitting there. You are actively engaging your brain's ancient defense system. You're learning, you're practicing, you're preparing. You are, in a very real way, training.
And all this leaves us with one final thought. Right now, we have access to more dark stories and morbid information than any other generation in history. So the question isn't really why we're curious anymore. The question is, how do we choose to use that curiosity? Is it for learning and preparing, or is it just for the thrill?